Mr. President, as I stand here to address this August Assembly, ethnic cleansing is being carried out in broad daylight in Beit Lahia and all of northern Gaza. As I stand here, displaced families were bombed yet again in tents in Al-Mawasi, burned alive, while the whole world is watching. Every hour, every day, more Palestinian children, women, and men fall victim to this depraved Israeli onslaught. Lives lost, families devastated, and entire people brutalized, terrorized, and traumatized with no end in sight. 424 days, and the genocide is still ongoing. Mass killing, mass displacement, mass detention, mass destruction of all requirements of life, and mass starvation, the gravest of crimes being perpetrated with a savagery unseen since the Second World War. A cruel war of atrocities against an entire civilian population, breaching every rule and crossing every red line. How is this possible? How can the world allow this to go on? The perpetrators are known. Their whereabouts are known. Their crimes are live streamed. They openly declare their intent to kill and maim, to destroy, to starve, to ethnically cleanse. And yet, they continue sleeping comfortably in their beds while their victims wander the earth from one death to another. Nowhere safe in what has become the most dangerous place in the world. They do so confidently, relying on decades of impunity, believing they will not be stopped, there will never be a cost for their crimes. This impunity must be brought to an end. The arrest warrants issued by the ICC must be a turning point, the beginning of the end of this impunity, of finally holding criminal perpetrators accountable and upholding the rule of law, of protecting civilians and achieving justice for victims, of stopping ongoing crimes and deterring future crimes. Mr. President, this full-fledged assault against the Palestinian people has been combined with an all-out assault against all those trying to save human lives and trying to uphold the truth and international law. Humanitarians, doctors, nurses, rescue teams, journalists, all targeted, hundreds paying the ultimate price with their lives as they tried to save others. And a primary target of Israeli attacks has been none other than these United Nations, its Secretary General, its agencies, its bodies, its peacekeeping forces, its charter and its resolutions. And UNRWA, the backbone of humanitarian response in Gaza and the lifeline for Palestine refugees, has been under constant attack from day one. The aim of the occupying power clear: to be rid of UNRWA as a way to further harm the refugees it is mandated to assist and protect, to negate their existence and their rights. The Israeli government has gone rogue. It is inciting against UNRWA within the United Nations and in the streets in New York and across the world, displaying billboards where it is portraying UNRWA workers as combatants and peddling a false narrative that intended to be a green light to its occupation forces to kill and maim and detain and torture UNRWA staff and attack UNRWA buildings and shelters and to pressure the international community to abandon UNRWA and the Palestine refugees to the doomed fate Israel has planned for it. These pictures that they have been circulating, inciting against UNRWA, under it with a small line, promoted and financed by the Israeli government. We know who are the guilty parties for circulating this incitement and false propaganda. This aggression against a UN agency and the license to kill UN personnel by a member state of these United Nations cannot be tolerated and must have consequences, including in regard to its ability to enjoy rights and privileges as a member of the United Nations. This violent and pungent defamation campaign against UNRWA and the UN as a whole must be stopped, and Israel must be held accountable for its incitement and the crimes it committed against the UN. Mr. President, Israel has breached every single one of the provisional orders of the International Court of Justice aimed at addressing the risk of genocide. Instead, it has persisted and doubled down on the commission of atrocity crimes, war crimes, and crimes against humanity committed every second of the day. We call on all states to use any and all leverage they have to put an end to the massacres. This genocide must be stopped by any means available. Israel wants you to be outraged by the use of word genocide. We call on you to be outraged by the commission of the acts of genocide against children and youth, against women and men, against elderly and disabled. Stop these atrocities on the Palestinian people. Stop this assault on our collective humanity. There is only one way to stop this genocide and to save lives, and to free prisoners and hostages, and to preserve the hope of a different future. We all know this. It is an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire. It is what we have been calling for every day for 14 months. It is what this General Assembly wisely called for more than a year ago in the face of the onslaught and humanitarian catastrophe and havoc Israel was already inflicting on Gaza. Again today, we call on all states to support a ceasefire, to demand a ceasefire, to do what is necessary to ensure an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire, to silence the guns, to stop the bloodshed, to save human lives. Mr. President, everything is at stake in Gaza. For those who believe in freedom and shared peace and security, they must act now. Gaza today is the bleeding heart of Palestine, an open, painful wound for the human family. Stop the bleeding and restore life in Gaza so it can be once again the beating heart of Palestine. Stop the bleeding so we can restore credibility to our international system, so we can ensure it for future generations, so our people can live, so our region can thrive, so that international peace and security can be preserved. Yesterday, the General Assembly, by an overwhelming majority, voted for an end of Israelis' unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory and for a high-level international conference to implement the UN resolutions pertaining to the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the two-state solution. Only the realization by the Palestinian people of their inalienable rights, including to self-determination and return, and only the achievement of an independent and sovereign Palestinian state on 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, can truly transform our region, and peace in our region can help transform the world. Stop the genocide, end this illegal colonial occupation and apartheid regime tormenting the Palestinian people. Support humanitarianism, support UNRWA, and prevent Israelis' attempt to eliminate the agency and its indispensable life-saving support to millions of Palestinians in Gaza and throughout the region. Uphold your responsibilities under international law, including humanitarian and human rights law. Uphold the ICJ provisional measures orders, the ICJ advisory opinion. Preserve a world where the rule of law reigns. Support freedom, the key to peace. What we do today will determine what we will all suffer or enjoy tomorrow. Mr. President, the images of our children burning in tents with no food in their bellies and no hopes and no horizon for the future, and after having endured pain and loss for more than a year, should haunt the conscience of the world and prompt action to end this nightmare and stop it from happening. Never again for our people or any other people. Never again. We plead with all nations gathered here, extinguish the fire devouring our children. Is that too much to ask? We appeal for your support for the important resolutions before you and for action to implement them to create a different reality than the horrific scenario Israel insists on imposing. We appeal to this General Assembly to rise to its historic responsibilities to act. And I thank you very much, Mr. President, and dear colleagues, members of the General Assembly.
I thank the distinguished observer, representative of the observer state of Palestine. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Israel.